Lord Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Sacks, líder religioso internacional, filósofo, autor galardonado de más de 30 libros, respetada voz moral, miembro vitalicio de la Cámara de los Lords, recipiente de 17 doctorados honoris causa y de muchas cosas más que no voy a mencionar ahora, así como a los distinguidos directores de las escuelas judías de la comunidad y a los miembros de sus patronatos que nos acompañan hoy. Quisimos aprovechar la presencia de Rabbi Sacks en México para iniciar una conversación acerca de los temas más importantes para la educación judía en México. Con el fin de aprovechar al máximo esta oportunidad, invitamos al licenciado Pepe Gordon, Premio Nacional de Periodismo, a quien todos ustedes conocen, para que nos ayude a dirigir y moderar este encuentro. Para no perder un minuto más, cedo la palabra a Pepe. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Un aplauso, por favor. Y bueno, es un gusto estar aquí con todos ustedes cuando vamos a hablar precisamente sobre lo que nos une en el siglo XXI en términos de una educación judía. Aquí están reunidos representantes de las diferentes escuelas y académicos que quieren impulsar el judaísmo hacia el siglo XXI. Y creo que una de las dificultades enormes que tenemos, esto lo había planteado el rabino Sacks hace unos momentos, es precisamente que a veces estamos muy divididos en nuestras posturas, en nuestra forma de entender las cosas en términos de nuestras propias comunidades. Y quiero empezar entonces por hacer una pregunta que está relacionada con algo que nos enseñó el maestro de Elie Wiesel, que es el maestro Shoshani. El maestro Shoshani decía que si se quiere tener un diálogo, debemos por lo menos guardar 30 segundos de silencio internamente para escuchar al otro y no para escuchar nuestra propia voz y nuestra propia opinión. Y creo que si de este encuentro salimos con esta idea de poder escucharnos los unos a los otros, tendremos precisamente las semillas de un diálogo que debe continuar, que esto es lo que precisamente ha planteado Ariela. Y entonces la pregunta pues es cómo crear puentes entre nuestras diferentes comunidades, nuestras diferentes formas de pensamiento y cómo escucharnos los unos a los otros.
Since you mentioned Elie Wiesel, Shoshani was his teacher, I will mention a little remark of Elie Wiesel. 40 years ago, on British television, there was a series on the religions of the world. And eventually they came to the program on Judaism. And the presenter of the program, who wasn't Jewish, goes into Jewish shuls and schools and yeshivot, and he comes looking rather shell-shocked. And he's talking to Elie Wiesel, and he says, Professor Wiesel, Judaism is a very noisy religion, isn't it? Do you have such a thing as silence in Judaism? And Elie Wiesel replied, Judaism is full of silences. It's just we don't talk about it. Or if I can put it the way I put it, there is good news and bad news about the Jewish people. The good news is we are among the world's greatest speakers. The bad news is we are among the world's worst listeners. And that is serious. And it is so serious that I went out of my way in the new Siddur that I translated and made the point that the key line in the whole of Judaism, Shema Yisrael, means listen, Israel. Because we're all too busy talking, we never hear. And the truth is, our ability to listen to somebody not like us is connected to our ability to listen to Hashem, who is not like us. Those relationships are very similar. So that the Gemara in Brachot of Chofavam and Beit, talking about the source of Tfilat Mincha, Vayetze Yitzchak Lasuach Basadeh, uses 4 Hebrew words. I want you to hear these 4 Hebrew words. Ein sicha ela tefillah. What a powerful sentence. Conversation is a form of prayer. Because when we open ourselves up to listen to the other, we are, as it were, opening ourselves up to listen to God. And I was just explaining to the pupils before that tefillah is really about listening to God. And listening to God, listening to us. So I think if we fail to communicate as Jews across our differences, that is a deep, deep spiritual failure. After all, Judaism is the only civilization I know that celebrates disagreement. We are the only civilization, all of whose canonical texts are anthologies of arguments. In Tanakh, Avram argues with God. Moshe argues with God. Jeremiah argues with God. Yonah, Job, they argue with God. In Midrash, Shivim Panim La Torah, every rabbi has his own interpretation of the pasuk. In Mishnah, Rabbi X says this, Rabbi Y says that. And when a rabbi asks HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is right, HaKadosh Baruch Hu replies, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim. So we never predicated Judaism on consensus. We predicated Judaism on conversation, on civil disagreement, on that ability to learn from others as well as to teach others. And that is in general. That midah, which was summed up, as I mentioned, in the very important statement of Ben Zoma, Ezehu chacham halomed mikol adam. Mikol adam. Who is wise? Somebody who learns from everyone, not just from the people who agree with me, but from the people who disagree with me. I learn something from them. I read all the people who disagree with me. I read all the atheists, I read Nietzsche, I read Dawkins, I read the whole world, because I learn something from each of them. So that is fundamental moral and spiritual axiom. We have to be open to the other. And we can do that when we are confident in our beliefs. If you are not confident, you feel, oh, that person's going to threaten me. That is, if you are lacking in bitachon atzmi. If you are lacking in self-confidence, you can... But who said you were allowed to lack in self-confidence? Lo taguru mitnaish. There's a biblical command. Don't be intimidated by anyone. Gam ki elech b'geit salmavet lo yirara. I can walk through the valley of the shadow of death and not fear evil. Why should I fear talking to a Jew who thinks I'm completely irreligious, or a Jew who thinks I'm a complete fanatic? I know I'm okay with a HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or if not, he's going to tell me. So I don't mind if somebody disagrees with me. So that is absolutely essential.
Y gracias. Y cuando estamos hablando, de esta comunicación necesaria, Martin Buber hablaba de la relación yo, tú, I, thou, Y usted menciona la necesidad de hacerla we, thou, nosotros y ustedes. Hablemos entonces de cómo se puede generar ese nosotros en la educación. Cuando estamos hablando de una educación judía, ¿de qué estamos hablando? ¿Y cómo podemos construir un nosotros a pesar de nuestras diferencias? Aquí están representados diferentes escuelas, diferentes formas de pensamiento de lo que se puede considerar como judaísmo, pero hay ciertos valores que nos unen. ¿Cómo construir ese nosotros?
First of all, there's something we all are agreed on. We all want our children to know more. We want them to walk through life at home in their heritage, literate in their people's literature. So we all agree on that. Number two, we want our children to be more committed as Jews. From knowledge comes commitment. Number three, there's a clear sense in which those foundational values of Tanakh, for instance, inform everyone. I believe in conversation over differences. So after attending a conference on Jewish unity in Jerusalem many years ago, in which the talking was brilliant and the listening was zero, I said to Elaine, I can't take any more of this. And so we made the decision to go out into Arad, long schlap from Yerushalayim, to meet somebody I hadn't met before, an Israeli novelist called Amos Oz. They called Amos Oz the Admor Shel HaChilonim, the Rebbe of the secularists. So I said to Elaine, well, if there's an Admor, you go and pay him a visit. So we will go to Amos Oz. So my friend said to me, what are you going to do? Are you going to convert him? I said, no, I'm going to do something much better. I'm going to listen to him. You know. So we listened and we became friends. And, you know, he wrote a little with his daughter, Fania, with whom I've also done a public conversation. I did a public conversation with Amos and with Fania. They wrote something called Jews and Words. That was their joint statement. You know, because we were talking about what is your Jewish identity. And it was very interesting to see how, you know, they formulated that. We have a philosopher in England who's a well-known secular philosopher, but called Alain de Botton. And the de Bottons were a very famous rabbinical family. One of them wrote a commentary to the Mishnah Torah. And he's a completely secular guy. But we did a public conversation on BBC television. And 2 years later, he brought out a book called Religion for Atheists. So this was his Chiloni way of saying, let's be religious. And in his first chapter, he writes very movingly, you know, about Yom Kippur. He says Yom Kippur is great because we all need to apologize to the people we've upset. And we never get around to doing it. So putting a day in the calendar when you do it, this is really good. He said it's so good, I think we should have, it's a shame it only happens once a year. I said, Alan, just stop there, you know. You come far, that's good enough. So, you know, you can move such people if you show them love and respect, but you have to respect the fact that they don't agree with you. As Hillel had to, look, these are bigger differences than the differences between Hillel and Shammai. Let's not kid ourselves, but the fact is that even Rabbi Meir, whose teacher, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, you know, went a long way from him, but his student never stopped talking to him. It seems to me that we have to be able to recognize that there are things we agree on and there are things that we disagree on. So let's focus on the things we agree on. I used to say that I have two principles when it comes to working with Jews who do not accept my orthodoxy, who choose other ways of being Jewish. Two principles. Principle one, on all matters that affect us, regardless of our religious differences, we will work together regardless of our religious differences. Number two, on all matters that touch on our religious differences, we will agree to differ, but with respect. That meant as a community we could work together on Israel, on fighting anti-Semitism, on welfare, on interfaith dialogue, many, many things. There were certain things we couldn't work together on, but the things we could work together on, we did work together on. And what was the result? We became friends. So whenever there was a big argument, we could sit down and resolve the argument because we had been talking together and we'd become friends. So even if you can only work together on 50% of matters, that 50% will create friendships that will help you with the things you can't agree on, but at least you don't act destructively towards one another.
Y la última pregunta que vamos a hacer, porque vamos ahora a abrir después de esta pregunta. Después de esta pregunta vamos a abrir la sesión a preguntas entre el auditorio. Les voy a pedir que cuando lo hagamos, no hagamos comentarios, sino hagamos preguntas, por favor, para aprovechar al máximo el tiempo del Rabino Sacks. Pero la última pregunta es, usted habla de dos peligros de cara a la identidad judía en el siglo XXI. Entonces, yo quisiera ver cuáles son esos dos peligros que usted plantea y cómo podríamos ir más allá de ello, que tiene que ver precisamente con el diálogo que se está planteando aquí.
Sorry, which dangers?
The dangers that face Judaism vis-a-vis the 21st century.
What?
The dangers that confronts Jewish people in the 21st century.
The dangers confronting the Jewish people in the 21st century are very clear. Number one, the danger from outside, the return of anti-Semitism in Europe, very serious. It took the Shoah to cure Western Christianity of an anti-Semitism that had lasted 1700 years since the conversion of Constantine. The trouble was, Europe was cured of that form of anti-Semitism. But in the meantime, it had infected another part of the world, the Middle East. Unfortunately, Christianity introduced into the Middle East in 1840 in the Damascus blood libel, the blood libel into Islam. The blood libel makes no sense in terms of Islam. But it was introduced first by Capuchin monks, then by Coptic and Maronite Christians, and there were blood libels in Cairo and Beirut in the 19th century as well. And then, of course, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was working with Hitler during the war, introduced that other great myth, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is my favorite book because it says Jews control the banks, Jews control the press, Jews control the world, and I say little do they know that often we can't even control a shul board meeting. So, I love this, but it's a big problem. So that's endangering the state of Israel today in a very, very difficult situation, caught between Hezbollah and Hamas under the shadow of an almost nuclear Iran, which is a horrendous threat. And there is a real threat to whether Jews will be able to stay in Europe today. In the near future, I have warned the leaders of Europe for more than 10 years that the situation of Jews in Europe is getting progressively untenable and unacceptable. And the other one is the weakness from within. Mexico is exceptionally blessed by the number of outstanding schools that you have and by the incredibly high rate of participation in those schools. But as you know, in America today, the assimilation rate is immense. And the same is true in most other Jewish communities in the world. We managed to arrest the growth in assimilation in Britain by multiplying by 300% the number of Jewish day schools. In the past 20 years, we've moved from 25% of Jewish kids at Jewish day schools to 70%. So, you know, I think we've resolved it in Britain, but not every community has had that success. So those are the two big issues, and you know, it doesn't help anyone when people see Jews internally divided. It discourages young Jews, and it empowers our enemies. So that is why a gathering like this is very important. And I have to tell you this, I can disagree with somebody on absolutely everything, but we can still be friends. And I think that's important, you know. O chevruta, o mituta. You know, friendship is life itself. You know the bracha you make on seeing a friend you haven't seen for 12 months? Baruch machayim mitim. Friendship is life itself. It's amazing. So, even if we can't agree on anything, we can still be friends and still respect one another. Yeah.
Hermosas palabras. Yo creo que ahora entonces vamos a abrir la sesión a preguntas que ustedes tengan. Les vuelvo a decir, preferimos que sean muy puntuales para que podamos aprovechar al máximo el tiempo de la... Sí.
El micrófono, creo.
¿Cuál es la mejor forma de preparar a nuestros alumnos para que vayan a una universidad, no judía obviamente, a cursar estudios sin riesgos de asimilación y sin riesgos de que pierdan su judaísmo, su identidad?
Send them, encourage them to go to a university with a lot of Jewish students. There's strength in numbers. You go to a university with only a handful of Jewish students, or with only a handful of committed Jewish students, the chances are you will lose that person. I'm sorry to say it, but we've seen it time and time again. So in Britain, but maybe here in Mexico also, I don't know, there are universities that are known to have strong Jewish societies, and you send a student there, and that student is pretty much likely to stay committed. And that's the simplest answer I have for you.
¿Otra pregunta? Sí. Sí, en español. Y te van a pasar el micrófono.
Si tuvieras que poner en 3 columnas básicas la enseñanza de judaísmo, ¿cuáles serían?
Al reggae. If you would have to put the whole teaching of Judaism in three pillars, which one they will be? 3 pillars of Judaism, just 3 words.
3 words?
3 pillars.
Can I get 4 words?
3 pillars. Words.
I hear you entirely, thank you. But we do it in 4 words, okay? Torah, avodah, gemilut chasadim. This is really important. Torah, to be a Jew is to learn. We are Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. We say, I learn, therefore I grow. That is pillar number one. A Jew learns. A Jew never stops learning. I'm embarrassed to tell this story, but many years ago, I was going for a medical checkup. My doctor saw that I had a certain symptom and committed me immediately, just with time to go home to pick up some clothes and a suitcase, immediately to hospital for a life-saving operation. As I came out of the general anesthetic, I'm just coming out of this general anesthetic, and I hear a soft knock on my hospital door, and I say, come in, and it's an 80-year-old Jew with a volume of Gemara and the Hizar, and he's got a big smile on his face. He says, Rabbi Sacks, I heard you were here in the hospital. Great, let's learn together. I'm dying, and he wants a Gemara share. It's beautiful. So number one, to be a Jew is never to stop learning. Number two, avodah. We call service to Hashem avodah, which means hard work. Today, all these adverts, the two-day week, the 4-hour week, the 7-week diet, everything's, derech ktsara shehi arucha, the shortcut that turns out to be a long cut. Jews succeeded in life because we know that anything worth achieving is avodah, is hard work. And if Jews have succeeded in anything spiritually, materially, politically, intellectually, it is because we knew we just had to work harder than anyone else. And that comes to the religious life as well. Hashem didn't make it easy. Tariag mitzvahs. And he did this, he wanted to lezakut et Israel. He made us used to hard work. I don't know how many places you and your pupils come from, but my guess is in every family in your school there's a tale of difficulty, crisis, danger, journeys, and people landing up, as Moshe Rabbeinu called his first son, Ger Hayiti Beretz Nochriya, as a stranger in a foreign land. To succeed like that, you have to work hard and teach your children to work hard. And you work hard at the gashmiut, at the material things, and you work hard at the spiritual things, and the end result is you live a full and flourishing life. Yigia kapecha kitochal ashrecha v'tov lach. When you really schwitz, then what you do tastes sweet. Avodah. And gemilut chasadim. The truth is, this world only exists because of God's chesed to us. And He knows we don't appreciate Him enough. But there's a phrase, I don't know if it translates, if you ever got to Mexico, called pay it forward. Have you come across that phrase? Hashem says to us, listen, I don't mind if you once in a while don't say thank you to Hashem, but I want you to pay it forward. I've been kind to you, so you go and be kind to others. And that applies to our fellow Jews, to our fellow citizens. Those are the three pillars. Torah is about the mind, Avodah is about the soul, and Gemilut Chasadim is about our social world. Put those three things together, and those are the three pillars of Jewish life.
Hermoso. Una última pregunta, si les parece bien. Last question.
La digo en inglés y en español. Thank you for being here. I want to ask you a question. Do you think that extremism or fanatism inside our own social group or religious group or cultural group can also be a threat for the outside. En español, si el fanatismo que también se siembra al interior de nuestras comunidades podría ser un riesgo tanto hacia el exterior como hacia el interior. Thank you, Rabbi.
The Hebrew for fanatic is
Hebrew for fanatic.
In Israel, there's no fanatics.
the Hebrew kanai is a term of praise, and we had two kanaim. One was called Pinchas, one was called Eliyahu. You have to read very, very carefully what the Torah and what Sifrei Nevi'im, Sefer Malachim, has to say about Pinchas and Eliyahu. Pinchas, Hashem praises for his fanaticism, and then says, Hineni noten lach et briti shalom. I am going to give you my covenant of peace. I'm going to tell you, you will never again be a fanatic. You will become a man of peace. And if you read Sefer Yehoshua, when a civil war threatened between the tribes on the west of the Jordan and the two tribes on the east bank of the Jordan, who did Yehoshua send as his diplomat, as his peace ambassador? Pinchas. Pinchas was a zealot once. Hashem said, well done, Pinchas, once but never again. Yeah? In Malachim Aleph, Perek Yud Tet, Eliyahu Hanavi, having confronted the false prophets of Baal, comes before Hashem on Har Chorev. Hashem says to him, what are you doing here, Pinchas? Eliyahu. Eliyahu says, I am being zealous for your sake. Then Hashem shows him the most extraordinary demonstration in all of history. He shows him a whirlwind shattering mountains, hurling rocks, and God was not in the world. Then he shows him a fire, and God was not in the fire. And then he shows him an earthquake, and God was not in the earthquake. And then came the Kol Demama Daka, the still small voice. That is where God is. He was teaching Eliyahu a lesson. Yes, it's fine to be a whirlwind and a fire and an earthquake, but that's not where God is. Then after that demonstration, he asks once more in the same words, Malacha po Eliyahu. And Eliyahu replies in the same words, I'm being zealous on your account. God then says to Elijah, go and appoint your successor, Elisha. I know of no more powerful commentary on zealotry in all of religious literature. The two heroes of zealotry. God commends once, but that's it, never again. And Pinchas changes, and Elijah doesn't change, and that's the end of Elijah's life as a prophet. The circumstances in which extremism are called for are rare almost to the point of being infinitesimal. And it was the Kanaim in the Second Temple period who brought about Churban Bayit, Sheni, and an exile of the Jewish people that lasted almost 2,000 years. It is very easy to be a zealot, because a zealot knows better than God what God wants. But it is very, very dangerous. And I think we have to simply say, with God, God is in the still, small voice of reason and fellowship and kindness. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a todos por su presencia. Como vieron, terminamos con la idea del silencio, la idea de llegar de nuevo a escucharnos a nosotros mismos, y ojalá, y esa sea la semilla para que podamos de alguna manera cruzar las formas más creativas del pensamiento judío de cara al siglo XXI. Muchas gracias por la presencia de esta vida.
Nada más se les recuerda, todos están cordialmente invitados a tener pláticas del rabino hoy lunes en Ramat Shalom a las 8 de la noche, martes mañana en Maguen David y jueves en Monte Sinai. Los esperamos a todos, por favor. Muchas gracias por venir. También